At the beginning of this Congress, as House Democrats, we made clear that we would extend the hand of partnership to the other side of the aisle whenever and wherever possible in order to find common ground to get things done for the American people, while at the same time being prepared to push back against Republican extremism whenever necessary. That was our commitment to the American people, and we continue to do just that. Earlier this morning, on the floor of the House of Representatives, Democrats and Republicans came together to reauthorize the Federal Aviation Administration in a bipartisan way, once again illustrating that there is the opportunity to find common ground in the best interest of the American people. When a bill does not contain the type of poison pill items that are designed to jam the extreme right-wing ideology of many Republicans down the throats of the American people. At the same time, when Republicans take a bipartisan piece of legislation like the National Defense Authorization Act, attack the women of America, attack reproductive freedom, attack the LGBTQ community, attack diversity all across the country, and undermine our national security and the ability of our military to recruit from every corner of America, we're going to oppose that type of extremism. And that will be our approach as we continue. And so next week, we'll have an opportunity perhaps to vote on a few of the appropriations bills, which are not going in the right direction. Because again, the Republicans have chosen to try and jam their extreme right-wing ideology down the throats of the American people and take us toward a nationwide ban on abortion care, bully the transgender community, undermine equal opportunity in every single zip code in a diverse country. And if they continue down this path, we will oppose their extreme efforts. At the same time, Democrats are going to continue to focus on building an economy from the middle out and the ground up, not the top down. This is a very different vision for America than the extreme MAGA Republicans have at this moment in time. It's an approach on the Democratic side that is working. More than 13 million good-paying jobs have been created during the Biden administration. That is a record. Unemployment at 50-year lows. Wages are increasing. Inflation and gas prices coming down. And the ability for the American economy to recover has been more robust than any other developed economy in the world in terms of emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Democratic approach to the economy is to build an economy from the middle out and the bottom up. The Republican approach to the economy is the top down. Here's the Republican economic philosophy: tax cuts for the rich, deregulation for wealthy corporations, and wage stagnation for everyone else, as compared to the Democratic approach of growing the middle class and building an economy that works for everyday Americans. And it's working. Questions?
Mr. Leader, in the last 24 hours, the committee hearings have included RFK Jr. yelling at Democrats that they're defaming him, and actually naked pictures yesterday at the committee hearing on whistleblowers. What do you make of how the committees have conducted themselves over the past week, past few months?
I mean, the Republican hearings that have unfolded over the last few days and throughout this entire Congress are a malignant clown show that are not designed to address issues that impact the health, the safety, and the economic well-being of the American people, but instead peddle outlandish and out-of-control conspiracy theories. The notion that Republicans would give a congressional platform to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who peddles anti-Semitic tropes and baseless xenophobic conspiracy theories, which together are directed at the Jewish community and the Chinese American community, is unbelievable, which is why you can't take my Republican colleagues seriously when they tell you that they believe in tolerance. Why would you give Robert F. Kennedy Jr. a congressional platform to spew his hatred? Here's the answer. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a living, breathing, false flag operation. His whole campaign is being run by right-wing political operatives who have one objective: try to take down President Joe Biden. That's why Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was given a congressional platform on this week of all weeks, because my extreme MAGA Republican colleagues are really not interested in doing anything meaningful to improve the economy, address inflation, create jobs, or deal with public safety concerns, particularly around the gun violence epidemic that are afflicting the American people.
There's only a limited number of days left before you guys leave for August recess. Do you have any updates on whether you will try to bring the privileged censure resolution against George Santos to the floor?
We haven't had an opportunity to discuss timing around the Santos issue, but understand the extreme MAGA Republican majority is more concerned with defending serial fraudster George Santos than defending the health, the safety, or the economic well-being of the American people. We were told months ago that the Ethics Committee would conclude its work in an expedited way within 60 days. 60 days have expired, and we've heard nothing but crickets from the Ethics Committee. Why? Because extreme MAGA Republicans have no interest in holding serial fraudster George Santos accountable. They are defending him in the same way that they defend Marjorie Taylor Greene, and in the same way that they're defending Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his wild conspiracy theories. Second row.
So there is going to be a hearing next week on UAPs. We heard from some members of Congress today talking about the pushback and the difficulties they've had in getting information related to them. Do you believe that information surrounding UAPs is overclassified and that there should be legislation to address that?
Well, the classification issue is one that I think should be undertaken in a bipartisan way. And so I'll leave that effort to the House Intelligence Committee. I've got great confidence in Jim Himes, his thoughtfulness, his approach to both safeguarding national security, but also embracing transparency whenever necessary. And I'm hopeful that the Intel Committee can come up with a set of recommendations, guardrails, a blueprint for how to strike that correct balance between protecting our national security and at the same time ensuring the greatest amount of transparency for the American people. Back to this side.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. In the context of what you said in your opening statement, President Biden said yesterday at a congressional picnic that you are a leader of great integrity, one with backbone. As the leader of Democrats, how do you feel about President Biden noticing these two components components of your leadership style? And can you elaborate on how these two qualities affect your day-to-day decision making?
I promise that my mom did not plant that question. Thank you for raising that. And look, I think as House Democrats, we have been working hand in hand with the Biden administration and have seen incredible leadership from President Biden throughout his time in office, both in terms of the prior 2 years, working with Speaker Pelosi, House Democratic Majority, Leader Schumer, Senate Democrats to get big things done for the American people. And as we've transitioned into this Congress with a new leadership team and a great job being done by Catherine Clark, our whip, and Pete Aguilar, our caucus chair, we've just tried to continue a close, strong, authentic working relationship with President Joe Biden. I appreciate the kindness of his words, but more importantly, appreciate the leadership that he has provided for the country. And we look forward to continuing to do big things for the American people. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. What was your reaction to the House passing the FAA reauthorization? If the Senate sends to the House an FAA reauthorization that includes, say, increase the number of flights out of DCA, would House Democrats vote against it? And then second, what was your reaction to the 9 Democrats who voted against the pro-Israel resolution? Speaker McCarthy told me yesterday, well, if you look at the 9 Democrats there, they've got a real anti-Semitic problem inside their conference, and it seems to be growing with their leadership doing nothing about it. They allow them to continue to say the things they have, to quit the U.S. military to Taliban, to say Israel's evil, to say only members' relationship with Israel is all about the Benjamins.
Yeah, we are not going to be lectured by extreme MAGA Republicans on anti-Semitism, on racism, on bigotry, and on intolerance. Period. Full stop. Are you kidding me? Let's look at their track record and the fact that they continue to stand behind the hater in chief, someone who has unleashed, in terms of the former president, a wave of bigotry and hate crimes, and an effort to turn back the clock that is extraordinary in scope. And yet they continue to bend the knee to Donald Trump. When Donald Trump tells extreme MAGA Republicans in the House to jump, they say how high. Try to accommodate his fantasies. And so we're not going to be lectured by extreme MAGA Republicans about intolerance. We are the party that has done as much as we can to march toward a more perfect union, to make sure that every single community in America feels welcome, inclusive of race and religion and ethnicity and region and educational attainment. And so I think the vote on the Israel resolution speaks for itself in terms of the House Democratic caucus and its perspective on the special relationship that exists between the United States and Israel. A relationship that is anchored, as President Herzog articulated so well yesterday, in our shared democratic values and our shared strategic interests.
And on FAA reauthorization, if the Senate sends back a
With
bill?
with respect to FAA reauthorization, the House has spoken. We're waiting for the Senate to speak, and then we'll have to figure out how we can align the two bills in a way that give us the capacity to send legislation to President Joe Biden's desk so he can sign FAA reauthorization back into law.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Speaker McCarthy yesterday made some of his most forceful comments to date on impeaching a member of the Biden administration. This time, Merrick Garland. Previously, it was Mayorkas they seemed to be targeting, and then you had Joe Biden. What do you make of, particularly in light of the hearing yesterday, that Republicans are now setting their sights on possibly impeaching Merrick Garland?
You know, every week we hear a new member of the Biden administration that extreme MAGA Republicans are determined to impeach. Why? Because extreme MAGA Republicans have no interest in addressing the issues that are important to the American people. House Republicans have been in the majority now for over 6 months. They have nothing to show for their majority, have done nothing on the economy, nothing on inflation, nothing on job creation, nothing on health care. And in fact, what they've tried to do was to end Social Security and Medicare as we know it. So there's a clear contrast in terms of the Democratic agenda, putting people over politics, fighting for lower costs and better paying jobs and safer communities and reproductive freedom and defending democracy, confronting the gun violence epidemic, and building an economy from the middle out and the ground up. The extreme MAGA Republican majority has nothing to show for their time in office, but the peddling of conspiracy theories, facilitating hate against communities all across the country, and figuring out who was going to be at the top of the list of their impeachment fantasies. That's an irresponsible, reckless majority. And the American people will continue to frown upon it.
And a little more specifically on the hearing yesterday, do you think that those two whistleblowers in that hearing were credible?
I didn't see the hearing. Obviously, the hearing, of course, went off track because the extreme MAGA Republican majority is led by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and George Santos. It's not a serious group of people.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Now, with regard to the Carly Russell case, the 25-year-old Black woman who went missing after she reported spotting a toddler on a major highway and was later found a couple days later, her account of the events is now being called into question. I know that this is an ongoing investigation. We can't comment on that. But whether the investigation corroborates her story or not, the fact is that missing Black and brown people, men and women, continue to not receive the same media coverage and support from law enforcement as white Americans. Is this something that's on Congress's radar to remedy? If so, how? And as we know, this is a very important issue for many Americans.
It's an incredibly important issue with respect to the specifics of that individual case. As you've indicated, there's an ongoing investigation. I just hope the investigators will follow the facts, apply the law, and present the truth to the American people. In terms of the broader issue of missing Black girls, missing Black women, missing Black children, I actually believe and have had some productive conversations with individuals on the other side of the aisle who also recognize that this is an issue, this is a challenge, this is something that should be addressed and addressed in a bipartisan way. Because empathy for every single community dictates that that is the case. And so I'm optimistic that we can find a path forward to make sure that in any situation, but particularly in those cases where there are communities throughout America who may feel as though they are not receiving equal treatment, that we remedy that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Artificial intelligence is an emerging topic on the Hill. Senator Schumer will be holding the last all senators briefing next week. Came up in some committee hearings on the House side. The CFPB director has indicated that he's looking for Congress to go through existing laws to see if any regulation opportunities exist, while Leader Schumer is looking for more new comprehensive legislation. I'm curious to know where you stand on either side of the debate as it pertains to artificial intelligence.
Well, the rise of artificial intelligence certainly presents a unique challenge that should be addressed and addressed in a bipartisan way. Leader Schumer has taken some important steps forward, and we look forward to seeing where the Senate lands on this issue. On our side of the Capitol, Speaker McCarthy and myself have convened several bipartisan briefings on the issue of artificial intelligence to try to establish a collective baseline of knowledge and information that would then provide an opportunity for the House to move in an informed and enlightened way to both allow artificial intelligence to thrive as a technology in areas where it can improve the conditions of humankind, and there's reason to believe in certain areas such as healthcare innovation and breakthroughs that in fact could be the case, while at the same time making sure that there are guardrails in place to mitigate the downside of artificial intelligence potentially being used by bad actors throughout the world.
You have been, back to yesterday's hearing in the Oversight Committee, you have been consistently critical of Republicans for bringing up conspiracy theories and, investigations that lack any evidence or any justification in your words. But yesterday, the two witnesses were experienced civil servants. By all appearances, they don't have any political conflicts of interest, and they delivered a pretty compelling narrative and said that Hunter Biden should have been charged with felonies and that they were ignored and that this investigation was slowballed. All those things said, do you think the Democrats should be paying a little bit closer attention to this, and is there reason for you to have some interest in whether or not the DOJ did give him a pass because of his last name?
Well, there was a prosecutorial decision that was made by a federal prosecutor appointed by former President Donald Trump, who was given the space to continue the investigation and make prosecutorial decisions, even as the Trump administration and the Trump Justice Department transitioned into the Biden administration and the Biden Justice Department. We have every reason to believe that there was not a scintilla of political interference as it relates to the charging decisions made by a Trump-appointed prosecutor with respect to the Hunter Biden case.
You started off by talking about the appropriations process. There was some fireworks in the committee this week over LGBT funding and Republicans stripping funding from those projects. Can you reflect on the kind of broader descent of that committee into partisan warfare where in the past years we hadn't seen that?
Appropriations Committee has historically been able to work together, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as appropriators, to do what was necessary to fund the government, to promote the health, the safety, and the economic well-being of the American people. But the appropriations process is broken. Rosa DeLauro stands ready to work with her Republican counterpart in finding a bipartisan path forward. But the extreme MAGA Republicans have decided they want to march the country toward another dangerous and dysfunctional government shutdown, because the extreme MAGA Republicans have decided that they're either going to be successful in jamming their right-wing ideology down the throats of the American people, including by bullying the LGBTQ plus community and marching toward a nationwide abortion ban, or the country is going to be forced to endure a government shutdown. That is what the brokenness of the appropriations process has made clear over the last several weeks, because this is a Republican majority not interested in doing anything to make life better for everyday Americans. Last question. Or I'm sorry. Last two questions.
Leader Jeffries, where do you stand on the Hollywood strikes? The artists that write our scripts and the, Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild walking the line.
Well, the creative community is such an important part of the fabric of America, and that includes writers and actors. And it is my hope that the two sides will be able to find common ground in a way that allows for the creative community to continue to flourish in a manner that is fair to the people who create the content, writers and actors, that the American people and folks from throughout the world enjoy. And so you've seen several members of the House Democratic Caucus express solidarity and concern with the writers and with the actors in their struggle for a fair, forward-looking agreement. and I stand with those members, and I stand with the creative community.
Following up on the appropriations, when it comes to some of the bills that have come out of this, the committee thus far, particularly when it intercepts with things that are important to New York, like Amtrak infrastructure, MTA funding, and so forth, do you have a sense of what the implications would be if these bills were to be enacted? I think Amtrak's wanting like a 64% cut in their funding under this bill.
Well, the Northeastern Corridor within the Amtrak ecosystem is incredibly important, not just to New York, but to Boston and to Philadelphia and to the Mid-Atlantic region. And because the Northeastern Corridor and Amtrak are so critical to these very important states, and these very important states are so critical to the economy, then it's important to make sure that we get it right. Now, we had in the past, through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, invested a historic amount in making sure that the Amtrak network of transportation throughout the country could continue to thrive in a 21st century environment. And I believe that as Democrats, we remain committed to that continuing to be the case. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.